Today's job is to finally sort the brakes on the forklift. After having this thing for probably 3 years now, we thought it would be a good time to get this job sorted. Before I bought it, it hadn't been run for 3 years, so the brakes haven't worked for 6 years essentially now. Due to the wheel cylinder, one of them had burst and lost all the oil out of it. I think the one that went was the one on the other side, and this is the one that's this was the good one, but because it had not been used for so long, the pistons inside the thing had seized up. So last week I stripped it down, rebuilt it. I had to put the forklift back together because a guy I know needed to use it, so it's been running around pretty much like this with with nothing at all on. So I've had to put this thing back together on the bench, using pure memory on how it goes together, because I stripped it down 3 years ago. Took the shoes off at least, but in taking the shoes off, I damaged the handbrake mechanism, which is over here. This is the handbrake mechanism, and it was bent in the shape of a U. But thinking about it, I don't think realistically we're going to get this working. Partly because the cable, I don't think the cable's working. But anyway, we shall have to see on that one, I think. But personally, I'm not bothered. As long as you put your foot down and you stop, that's all I'm bothered about. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to film as much as this is what I'd like to, but I'd like to film it and show that it actually works. Now the problem we have got, if I can bring this round to the back, the problem I've got is that the brake master cylinder, which was this over here, again had seized up solid. So I used a bit of heat to persuade it to come apart, and in doing so this sleeve here has come loose. So that sleeve is obviously designed to keep oil inside it, because that's where the inlet goes and the outlet through the top. So we've got our heads together and we've decided that a clutch master cylinder off of a Land Rover will do just as well. So the next job is to see if this will actually fit inside the front of the forklift. So this is where it should fit. This is the brake pedal here, and this would have to drop down into there, and we can already see that it's too big, which is a shame really, although it may go in with the rubber off. What I would also have to do is I'd have to change this piston, which is that bit, for the original one. Oh yes, look at that. That's made me a happy bunny. I'm not going to spend any more money. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change that piston and put the original one off the forklift back in. Right, my next job is to glue the brake linings back on. Now, I'm one to say that I want to fix some brakes with some blue tack, and there is nothing on here to say that pseudo fix-all high tack super strong glue is not suitable for brake shoes. So I can't see a reason why I can't do this. So just squeeze that on there like that. Make sure you've cleaned the surface before you put the brake lining back on. Make sure it's square. Give it a good wriggle around so it's got it solid. Right, what I need now is a couple of clamps to hold this in place. There's one on there. I don't want to obviously break the crack the line in, because the whole thing's a waste of time. Now, some of you might think that this is a bit silly using silicone sealant to hold brake shoes together, but you're working with a vehicle that you're working on a vehicle. Bloody hell! Go away. You're working on a vehicle that cannot go any faster than probably 10 or 12 miles per hour, and at that speed you're not going to be in a position where you need to slam your brakes on anyway. So when I found this other clamp, that should be done. Right, so I've not really filmed much here, but I've put it back together. It is filled with oil, but we didn't get a chance to do the bleeding side of things. But it is all in place, and it's got all signs are going well. So it's now gone 7 o'clock. So I'm going to try and start it up. The battery's a bit sluggish on it, so I'm going to help it along a bit. Although I know we shouldn't do this. So we'll pick this up next weekend and hopefully we'll get them sorted. Right, so here we are today, the following weekend, and I didn't get as much filming done last weekend as I wanted to, because a guy I know turned up and he helped us out getting the thing going. We didn't get it done because we had a couple of problems, but we had another down at yesterday, and we think we've got it working correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a startup video followed by a driving video, so we can see if we're still as good as we think we are. Right, so since buying this thing 3 years ago, I ditched the original starting mechanism, which was these 3 switches. We had an ignition, a heater plug and a starter switch, and I fitted a more conventional key, which it would have had originally, but it had obviously just been bypassed for whatever reason. It's only a Lucas key. You could start this with a screwdriver if you really wanted to. So you've got heater plugs there, and then you can turn it over there. I even managed to get working the clock, so we know how many hours we've done. We're currently on 7,900 hours, so I'm assuming that's from new. So we're still on heat at the minute, and then we'll see if it goes. Wedged in there to stop the pedal. Oh. So the way this thing should work, if you've never used one of these before, is that the middle pedal is a brake and the left pedal is a clutch brake. So if I press that all the way down, we should have a brake, and when we select gear, you would pull that out like you would normally, then you start moving forwards. Quite a hill here, so if I press the brake, then we are holding quite well. Look, there we go. So I would say that's a success. You can hear the buzzer working there as well. And you can see what I mean, we need to sort this thing out about cutting out. So I'll put it back into the garage and we can have a look. Right, so after checking the throttle pedal, I've adjusted that so it now idles correctly, as we'll see in a minute. What I've done is I've been looking at the alternator, because the belts that drive it, which you can just see on the top of there, was quite loose. I mean, you could actually spin the fan and the alternator by hand, so you didn't, so there was no tension on it. So having spent probably the best part of an hour stripping the alternator down, so taking it off, I've had to do some bodgers on that as well, in order to get it to tension correctly. It's now charging correctly, which we'll show in a minute. So I'll just start it up. You get 5 seconds of heat or something like that, and then we'll go. So it now starts and idles without having to press the throttle pedal. Like that. And if I get my... Right, so the alternator should now be sorted. I'd just missed something off, and I've just checked it. So there we go. 14 volts on the voltmeter. So I think next week's job will be to steam clean this thing off and change the oil and filters. So that should help it to start easier and run more efficiently.